What up, everybody? It is the summer, it's super hot outside, and so kids are getting overheated. But how can you tell the difference between a child who's overheated, heat exhausted, and then progressing to heat stroke, which is a legit medical emergency, can lead to end organ dysfunction and death? Today, we're going to talk about the key things parents need to know to keep their kids safe. All right, so first, why are kids at risk of overheating compared to adults? So number one, they are more metabolically active, so they produce more heat than you or I. Number two, their body surface area compared to overall mass is actually higher, so they absorb more heat from the environment. Number three, they produce less sweat. So for the first 2 to 3 weeks of life, the sweat glands haven't really even formed. And even as babies turn into toddlers and little kids, they still sweat a lot less than adults. And number four, the evidence really shows that children and young adults can't acclimate as quickly or as well as adults can. So we know they're going to be at risk of heat injury, but remember, this is sort of a progression. It's not an on or off switch. And at the end of the day, what we're really trying to avoid is something called heat stroke, which is where you're really at risk of serious end organ damage and death. One of the first things you'll see if a child's overheated is muscle cramps or just complaints of being hot. When that progresses to what we call heat exhaustion, you start to see other symptoms that are a little bit more concerning. So first, the skin will often be hot and sweaty, but it'll progress to being cool and clammy and have a very kind of unusual appearance to it. Kids might complain of dizziness, having a headache, maybe feeling like they're going to throw up, nausea or vomiting. They might be weak or even be a little bit irritable. These are all symptoms of heat exhaustion, and this is where the body's thermostat is still kicked in and trying to regulate the temperature, and they haven't quite progressed to heat stroke. The key thing that tells you that this is an absolute medical emergency is when a child has altered mental status, or suddenly they're not acting like themselves. So they might be confused, they might be so lethargic they're basically passed out, they might have seizures. These are all signs that this is no longer something that you can handle as a parent. You need to call 911 right away and get them seen. When this occurs, it usually means that the core body temperature has gone over 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and the length of time that you have that, it's called hyperthermia or high body temperature, will correlate with the amount of organ damage that's caused, and so you really need to bring that temperature down quickly. If your child is showing symptoms of heat exhaustion, then you want to get them into a cool place, so often into the shade or air conditioning. You want to remove any excess clothing. You can apply ice packs if you want. It often goes over either the axilla, so the armpit, the groin, or the neck can be very helpful. If you have a spray bottle to encourage evaporation or evaporative cooling, then spraying a child with cool water would be reasonable. And then having them hydrate. You usually want to use a chilled either sport drink or Pedialyte or something like that. So you want it to be cool liquid and something that has a sugar in it and salt. Data shows that if you have sugar and salt in the liquid rather than just water, it will get absorbed much better by the body, so allow that rehydration, which is critical for recovery. So doing all those things, if a child progresses to heat stroke, they have that altered mental status or seizures, number one, call 911, and while you're waiting, you can do the same things we just talked about. It would be an unusual situation, but if you are able to safely do cold water or cool water immersion, that generally is helpful. You want to avoid ice baths because it often causes shivering, which can actually increase core body temperature. And again, if you're doing this with a child who has altered mental status, you need to be very careful about how you're doing it. So if you can't do it safely, just do all the other conservative things that we talked about. The other important point here is if your child has really altered mental status, this is probably not the time to be giving them liquid via the mouth. We often say that children can't protect their airway when they're obtunded or very, very lethargic. What we mean by that is if you try to put Gatorade or water in a child's mouth, it's very possible they will aspirate it or actually get into their lungs, which will cause huge issues and possibly a pneumonia. So the best thing to do is really avoid these situations, right? So the three key situations I want to talk about is one, when you have your stroller. So if you have a newborn out, remember they're not sweating very much. A lot of people will put a cloth over the stroller to protect from the sun, and that's totally reasonable. But just remember that those drapes can actually increase the temperature by 5 or 10 degrees or more and put your baby at risk. So it's a good idea to have a fan or at least ensure ventilation in some way and keep a very close eye if you're doing that. The second is vehicular heat stroke. So if you leave a child in a car, even if the windows are cracked for a brief period of time, this can be extremely dangerous. So remember, even on like an 80-degree day, the temperature can get well over 100 degrees within 20 minutes of being inside of a car. So this is extremely dangerous. And then the last thing is exertional heat stroke. So teenagers and football players in particular are at high risk for this. So when you talk to your kids, just let them know that, there's a lot of pressure to perform out there, but if they start to feel like their skin getting clammy, cool, if they ever feel dizzy or weak, that is not the time to tough it out. That is actually the time to find shade, rehydrate, and prevent progression to heat stroke. And the last point I want to make is just to differentiate hyperthermia, or a high body temperature, and fever as we normally think about it. So if your child does have high body temperature and it's related either to exertion like on the football field or ambient temperature in the other situations we talked about, Tylenol and ibuprofen actually are not going to help. Their body is trying to cool it down. It's just not possible because of these other factors. And so those medicines really won't work in this situation. All right, I hope that was helpful. If you did find it useful, as always, subscribing or sharing the video would be extremely helpful. And then please leave any comments of things you think are working or not working, or subjects you'd like to hear about. I'd love to talk about them. Thanks.